Hello you Pokémon enthusiasts! One of the most important aspects of us humans is that we are hunters, quite good ones at that. But what about in the Pokémon world? Is it like real life, where some hunt for food while others for sport? Well, this question was in my mind recently, so I've decided to make this tier list on how easy it would be to hunt each Pokémon, starting with the Kanto region. There will be 3 main rules. First rule is that the Pokémon will be found in their natural habitats. I base that on where they are usually found in the games, for example, with some minor help from their dex descriptions, but I won't rely too much on that one. Second rule is that the humans' attacks are typeless, unless we add something to change it up, like throwing a rock for example. Third and final rule is that this is a humans versus Pokémon only, so we won't have any help from other animals or Pokémons. And I just want to explain a little bit about the tiers also. First, we have the Kids First Hunt. This is when a Pokémon can be defeated by just one kid, and whatever a kid can find laying around. Kids Coalition is for a group of kids, ganging up on a Pokémon. Old Style Lone Wolf is for a hunter with more experience, but using hunting methods that don't include firearms. Village Food is the same as above, just more hunters. Modern Day Artemis is a hunter using what most places would deem as guns that are legal to hunt, so no illegal modifications or a machine gun for example. HXH is for Hunter Association, same as before, but more numbers. And finally, Army is when we are not holding back anymore and will even do some war crimes to win. With all that said, let's start with the starters. And I say they should go on the first tier, even if a little rare of an encounter. The most dangerous is definitely Charmander, but even it has a pretty well-known weakness. So a surprise attack with a bucket of water would be its doom. The middle stages do fare better, so I will bump them up a tier. And for Charmeleon, by being much more alert than its previous evolution, I think it deserves being on the Lone Hunter. And the final forms, they all need a group, surely. Venusaur has the size and bulk to not fall to a single attack, and fight back. Same with Blastoise. And while Charizard lacks these defenses, it more than makes up for it with firepower. You can probably make a point to bump them up a tier or two, but for now, my gut is telling me this is their place. Now for some easy prey. Caterpie, Metapod, Butterfree, Weedle and Kakuna are all going to Kids First Hunt. They are all just squishy bugs, and Butterfree is definitely afraid of pebbles. Beedrill is a scary, aggressive, big bee wasp, and living in groups make it harder for kids to deal with them. But a seasoned hunter would have no trouble getting it alone. PJ is just a bird, might get away from time to time, but the kids got this easily. Pidgeotto and Pidgeot are more of a group effort, with the latter maybe being a little too much. I think I'll trust the kids this time. Rattata is the same, just a mouse, no problem for a kid. Ratcate should need one more kid, maybe 2, but not that much. Spearow can be tricky if the flock is around, but definitely safer than Beedrill. And Fearow can go with the other big birds. Even if more of a challenge, I don't think we need much more for it. Same goes for Ekans. Since it's way too big for one kid alone, it would just constrict and poison them. Now with friends, it might just be possible. Arbok is a no-go though, way too massive for them, and pretty intimidating as well. Let it to the adults. Time for the mascot. Pikachu might cause a little trouble with its electricity, even if it's not as fatal as fire for example. It's way faster and just stunning the hunter enough so Pikachu can escape is a win in my book. So I decided to put it in Lone Wolf. Raichu can soon follow, since I don't see the need for much more. Sandshrew may be too tough for one kid, but calling some friends and they can play with it like a ball. So hey, while I was editing I noticed I put Sandshrew in the wrong tier like an idiot, sorry for that. And back to the video. Sandslash will need a little bit more, since it can protect itself way better than its kin. The Nidorans can hold hands and go together to Kids First Hunt. While Nidorina and Nidorino can fend themselves from 2 or 3 kids, a larger group might be too much for them. And the Queen and the King Well, no experienced hunter would like to hunt them alone, right? They need some backup. So, village food. Clefable and Clefairy, they can take a hit, so a kid alone, out of the question. A bunch of kids, well, Clefairy definitely goes there. Now, Clefable, that's a job for an adult. I don't think the kids can handle this one. But a kid alone can definitely take care of Vulpix. I don't think a bunch of kids can take care of Ninetales though. I think it's only fair that Ninetales needs to go on the old style lone wolf. Jigglypuff and Wigglytuff on the other hand, they are going to pop like a balloon the moment the kids throw something sharp at them. And Zubat, just one rock and he's down. Golbat is massive though, so I don't think one kid alone is able to take care of him. But two, yeah, now I can see something going on. Oddish and Gloom, a kid can just put fire on him, that's super effective, end of the story. Now, Vileplume is probably going to be a little bit harder, so I'm going to bump him up a tier. But same story, just put fire on him, 2 kids, okay, don't work. Paras and Parasect are way too aggressive, and that's not a good thing for them. Because hear me out. Paras, way too small, way too frail, kid will stomp him. Parasect may need some teamwork to take him down, but I believe it's totally doable, and because of their aggressive nature, they will not flee. They will go and fight even when they know they can't win. Venonat and Venomoth now, they are definitely going to get hunted down, with rocks probably. For Diglett and Dugtrio, I don't think the kids have any chance. We need someone with more experience. Because even though they aren't bulky, they will probably notice the kids before they can throw in the first attack. So, to the old style lone wolf they go. If you saw some of the most famous serial killers out there, you know a kid can kill a cat very easily. Meowth is no different. Persian is the size of a tiger, and although he doesn't weigh nearly as much as a tiger, I think we need someone with more experience to take care of this one. For Psyduck, a kid alone is definitely going to evolve his headache into a stroke in one punch to the head. Golduck though is way too keen on his senses to be taken by surprise by a kid or even a bunch of kids. We need someone with more experience again. But for Monkey and Primate, while they are also very aggressive, they can definitely hold their ground better than Paras and Parasect. And the more I think about it, the more I agree that Monkey is at least in the Youngsters Coalition. I don't think one kid alone can beat up a Monkey. And Primate, even though a bunch of kids can jump on him, I think he will win in the end. So he goes to the old style lone wolf. Growlithe is another case that if the kid plays his cards right, he can take him down. Arcanine is a beast though. He's way too big, way too heavy, way too fast. This monster has to go on the village food. I believe most of the time that someone is going to hunt Arcanine alone, the person is going to lose. Poliwag and Poliwhirl are definitely kids play. They're probably going to try and escape most of the time, but I think the humans have the advantage on this one. Poliwrath though, I think this one needs to be someone more experienced. Since the kids are definitely not taking him out in one attack, and he probably can take them out in one. For Abra, we need an adult because the kids are way too clumsy and will get spotted. Kadabra and Alakazam are going to the same tier for the same reason. Someone who has experience hunting these species probably will deal the damage before they can react, and since they are very frail, they will fall. Machop and Monkey are very similar, so I think it's fair to put them on the Youngsters Coalition, but Machoke and Machamp, while I'm sure they can defeat a man with one punch, I'm not so sure on the other way around. I don't think a hunter alone is going to be able to defeat them easily. So, Village Food. Bellsprout and Weeping Bell, even though they might hurt the kid, I think the kid got it. Victory Bell though, now we probably need an extra kid or two. Time to go fishing, but unlike the real world, the fishes can fight back on land pretty easily. I still believe 2 kids can take care of Tentacool, one to reel him in and the other to bash him around. But Tentacool is way bigger and has more tentacles. Hunting one alone might be too dangerous even if you have experience. So Village Food. 2 kids with hammers can take care of a Geodude, but not Graveler though. That boulder would flat them out easily. And Golem is even bigger with great defenses, so it can probably run away from any number of hunters. That's why I believe Golem is our first modern day Artemis. Moving on, we have Ponyta. Way too nimble for a single kid. But what are friends good for if not to get stomped while you give the final blow? So a bunch of kids can deal with them. But no number of kids can deal with a Rapidash. Just like the Abra line, we will need to defeat it in one blow or else it will be gone from here. So someone with more experience will be needed. Slowpoke and Slowbro are some easy ones. One kid can deal with it and they won't even notice it. With Magnemite and Magneton, we face the electricity problem again. And this time they are also magnetic, making some weapons even more ineffective against them. However, if someone is out hunting for them, they probably already know how to deal with that. The problem with Farfetch is how rare it is, but definitely not rare enough that a kid wouldn't know how to hunt for one. Doduo and Dodrio are definitely way too hard for kids to surprise, so we need an adult here. Can you tell me a better combination than Seal, a bunch of kids, and a blunt weapon? Yeah, thought so. And I am putting Dilgon one above just because of its sheer size. I don't even know where to start with Grimer. How do you even hunt them? With Bleach? And they are definitely way too dangerous to hunt alone. But since I believe no firearm is going to be needed, I will put them on village food. But if you think Grimer is dangerous, then let me tell you about the biohazard that is Muck. Do not joke around its toxics. I believe we will need the modern technology more to protect the hunters than to actually hunt Muck. Shelder, on the other hand, a kid can probably find one at the beach and that's the end of the poor fella. Cloyster though can actually fight back, even in a defensive position. But if enough hunters team up and put him in an oven, that would be game in my opinion. The next three put me in a bit of a pickle. You see, for some people, the Proton Pack is not a legal firearm, since it uses nuclear energy, but the Poltergust is just a vacuum, and that's not a gun at all. So I say we meet halfway and create our own ghost hunting gadget. With that, I can confidently say that Ghastly is a one-man job. As for the evolutions, some backup will probably be needed. One false movement and you are probably paralyzed. But that's why we have friends there. Onyx, I have to put him at least in the same tier as Golem, right? There's no way any number of people can hold down an Onyx. While Drowsy can be taken care of by a bunch of kids, we all know better than to let Hypno near them. Let the adults take care of this one, okay? There's not much a Krabby can do against a bunch of kids, and Kingler just needs a good fisher who knows how to keep a safe distance. Voltorb and Electrode are just faster, hyper-aggressive creepers, so just one Steve. Execute, one kid for each head will do the trick. But Executor, well, if you ever try to cut down a tree, you will know that it's not an easy job. And this time, the tree is even fighting back, so I guess the village makes the most sense. Cubone does have a weapon and headgear, making it difficult for a kid to 1v1 it. However, if the kid calls his friends, now they can bully the orphan. Marowak seems to have mastered the bone, so even an adult would probably have difficulties with him. So I'm gonna say at least 2 hunters for this one. Actually, I believe Hitmonlee and Hitmonchan should be here as well. It's not like I believe it's impossible for one hunter to defeat them, but most of the time the Pokemon would either run away or defeat the hunter in a fight. And Lickitung is kind of in a similar situation, where I believe a bunch of kids could take him down, but most of the times they just wouldn't, so I guess I will put it in the one hunter. Oh, that's some unfortunate positioning. For coughing, a bunch of kids might become sick, but that still leagues better than what the blob would do to them. And since it doesn't explode on sight like the other balls, I guess the kids will do just fine. The stench of wheezing alone would probably drive the kids away, but one hunter will be just enough. There is no number of kids that would be able to stop a Rhyhorn in its track. But since Rhyhorns aren't that smart, a good hunter would be able to guide him to a trap. Rhydon does not have the same weakness though, so he can go with his rock ground buddies over there. For Chansey, 2 kids are more than enough. One of them pretends to be sick, and the other strikes her from behind. Easy breezy. Tangela surely can protect itself from one kid, But if a bunch of them brings in some flames, then that's game for little fella. Kangaskhan would probably take care of any kid who gets too close to it, but a hunter would probably know how to break her spirit before going for them on. A kid can probably fish up a horsey and slam it multiple times in the ground, but the kid will be cancelled for blackface after that, so there's that. Now Sidra, Goldin and Seeking, we probably need another kid or two to do the bashing for us. Since Staryu is mostly fine letting predators chomp away on their limbs, I'm guessing their self-preservation skills aren't that great, so I'll give this one to the kid with a sledgehammer over there. Fun fact about Starmie, up until Gen 4, you could only get one by evolving a Staryu, and even after that, it's still a pretty rare encounter, and that does comply with its Pokédex entry, which I always take with a grain of salt, because you know, there are some pretty wild entries over there. That is all to say that this time we need an adult who knows where to search for one, with a sledgehammer probably. And Mr. Mime goes in the same tier, since it will probably trap in a box anyone who's not stealthy or strong enough to defeat it in one hit. And kids aren't what I would call quiet or strong. Now Scyther is a pretty interesting case, because on one hand it is fast, it can fly, and has the sick blades for arms. On the other hand, its typing is so bad. Any half-decent hunter will have the advantage on this alone. Speaking about bad types, it's Jinx! And I don't think there's much Jinx can do if a bunch of kids just jump at her, especially if one is playing an instrument beforehand to allure her. For Electabuzz, you would need to keep a safe distance, and I don't think one arrow is going to one-shot it most of the time. But give me 2 archers and now I can see it going on their favor. Unfortunately for Magmar, it is found mostly in rocky terrains like active volcanoes, so a prime spot for a hunter to set super effective traps on them. Pinsir is another one that is way too strong and scary for the kids, but a hunter would just have to wait for the right time. Taurus is just an extra aggressive bull, but since it can create earthquakes on a wind, different than most other bovines, I will say at least 2 or 3 hunters. Although one might think a kid would never be able to break Magikarp's scales, you'd be surprised on what an unsupervised child can accomplish. Gyarados though is destroying everyone that is either alone or doesn't have a firearm with them. It's almost army tier. Almost. Even with its huge size, Lapra's gentle nature would probably be its doom. But that's only if history repeats itself. So yeah, one hunter. Adiro's copy from memory is not that great, and a good hunter would use that to their advantage. But kids would either be too scared or unable to do anything against a big Pokémon, even if the transformation is imperfect. Eevee is just one kid just like the other starters. Now, the evolutions all have their own set of defenses that kids would have some problems dealing with, but an adult can deal with them no problem. Any kid can put a zip bomb in a pen drive and toss at a Porygon, and you could just download the Pokémon in your own home probably. The problem with the fossils is that they are already extinct, at least in most places, so the kids would rarely find them, and when they do, they wouldn't know what to do with them, but an expert would know where to search and how to hunt. But that's for the base forms. For the evolutions and the Aerodactyl, probably better to have some backup. Yeah, none of those kids are even making a dent in Snorlax, and I'm sure an adult alone can't do much either. But give me a bunch of adults with pointy sticks and then we will be cooking. It's no surprise the birds will go straight to Hunter Association. The safer of the trio is definitely Articuno, but if you think that ice is safe, then that just means you have never seen a big snowstorm. So just don't go hunting them alone. In fact, bring a lot of people. But you can definitely go alone for the next 2. While the kids would likely fail any hunt for Dratini and Dragonair, for a seasoned hunter, Dratini will be piece of cake. Although possible, it's probably for the best if you have some backup against a Dragonair, since it is a 4 meters long dragon at the end of the day. As for Dragonite, it might be a bigger challenge than the birds themselves. Given his defense, speed and intelligence, it can probably get away from most situations, so the Goofy Dragon will be the first one in the army category. Following soon after, Mewtwo and Mew are going here as well. Think of them as Alakazam but stronger in all aspects, plus the common hunter will have almost no knowledge on their nature or how close they can approach without being noticed. but leave it to a foreign government who feels threatened by their powers to just pulverize Kanto as a whole to get rid of them. With that, we have finished the original 151 Pokémon. If you disagree, leave a comment. I would love to know your opinion. Or maybe I missed something. Hope you enjoyed the video and see you in Gen 2.